Now, I have covered a fireworks disaster before on this channel, but this was the first that I'd heard about this incident. And what's odd about the Arequipa disaster is that it wasn't even the fireworks that ended up causing the fatalities. Arequipa is Peru's second largest city, and in 1996 was home to some 630,000 people. It's set high in the Andes beneath 3 dormant volcanoes. Known as La Ciudad Blanca for its pale volcanic stone buildings, it has a distinct, independent regional identity and a strong tradition of public celebrations. In fact, there are lots of celebrations, and most of them tend to involve fireworks, processions, and large crowds in the historic centre. The biggest one of all is the Semana de Arequipa, held each August, which marks the city's founding and involves parades, concerts, and a huge firework display that runs late into the night. On the night of the 14th of August 1996, the city of Arequipa swelled with visitors for its annual anniversary celebration. Thousands of peoples, locals and tourists alike, gathered along the banks of the Rio Chili and packed the old stone bridge, the Puente Grau, for some of the best views of a spectacular fireworks show which was launched from along the riverside. From this vantage point, the historic white stone facades of the town centre glowed under the bursts of colour, and the crowd got a real up-close experience when some of the fireworks were let off directly from the bridge itself. Just before midnight, right as the fireworks show was really ramping up, tragedy struck. As the fireworks on the bridge were set off, much to the delight of the crowds who were packed in on the bridge like sardines, one of the huge mortar rockets fired its shell, only for that shell to ricochet off something that was directly above it. Luckily, the massive shell only clipped the obstruction and didn't explode right there and then on the bridge. What wasn't so lucky was what it had clipped, because it had clipped a wooden pole that was carrying a power line, a 10,000 volt power line. The impact from the shell severed the power line, which fell straight down onto the crowds of people below, and 10,000 volts of power surged through the crowd. One survivor, 22-year-old Silvia Condori, described the moment. "It was as if I was being shaken from head to foot. Everyone was shaking. The whole street had electricity." The surge of electricity was so powerful that some of those that were nearest to where the cable fell burst into flames. In the middle of the noise and the sparks of the actual fireworks show, some of those further away didn't realise initially that there was anything amiss. They saw sparks, and they heard shouts and screams, but it wasn't until burned and shocked people started pushing their way off the bridge and through the other crowds that the general mood changed and panic set in. Journalist Claudia Cisneros, who had been sent to cover the event, caught the exodus on camera. People were coming our way, shouting, pushing and screaming, "Watch out, you're going to get burned." One shocked survivor who was on the bridge when the cable fell recalled, "I was with my wife. A shell burst and broke the cable, and that's when the fire began. In the confusion, I lost my wife. I couldn't pull her out, and when I saw her again, she was charred." By now, most of the people who were on the bridge had fled, but those who had been electrocuted and were still alive were obviously incapacitated and needed urgent help. As the police and the firemen raced to the scene, they realised that they still had a major problem. The power line was still live, spitting sparks and flames, and it posed a danger to anyone getting too close. Nonetheless, brave men risked their own lives to try and get near enough to pull the injured away from the cable. Needless to say, this was extremely hazardous. Policeman Edward Costello, having successfully managed to pull 2 young girls to safety, went back for the mother, but this time he got too close. 10,000 volts arced from the cable, and he was killed before he was able to pull the mother to safety. By morning, the final toll was known: 35 killed and 42 seriously injured, many suffering third-degree burns. The next day, Peru's Attorney General, Blanca Colan, went herself to Arequipa in order to determine whether there was negligence and insufficient safety measures in the pyrotechnics. Considering that there were 35 people dead and dozens in intensive care in the local hospital, I think it's a safe bet to say that there was some degree of negligence or insufficient safety measures. Now, I don't know what the result of the official investigation was, but that journalist, Claudia Cisneros, did some digging and found some depressingly unsurprising revelations. For starters, the firework contractor who was in charge of rigging the bridge was unlicensed, and most of the fireworks were homemade ones. There was also the rumour going round that the actual firework that had hit the cable had been placed in that position upside down by the boy who was helping to do the work. Now, damage to the bridge railings at that location indicate that something definitely went amiss with that shell. It was also determined that the power cable circuit breakers had not been installed on that section of the power grid, resulting in the power cable staying live until somebody at the power company was ordered to switch it off. And this is almost unbelievable when you consider that this was a busy bridge on any given day of the week, and especially during these festivals. Add in the annual fireworks and it's almost laughable that they would have this high voltage power line with no circuit breaker running right through the middle of all this. In short, there was a litany of safety failures. Unlicensed amateur installation, fireworks that were way too close to the crowds, the high voltage power line with no circuit breaker. Faced with this damning scenario, city officials led by Mayor Roger Caceres Perez quickly swung into action. Action to deflect blame and to cover their own arses. The city is outside of this. It could not have been prevented. It was an act of God. There was negligence, but I understood that everything was in order. I take no responsibility. Politicians, don't you just love them? In the end, only the owner of the fireworks company, Jesus Serreiras, was prosecuted for not having the correct licence. Everyone else was absolved of blame. But the scale of the tragedy did force the city to take some preventative measures, and the long overdue circuit breakers were installed on all high voltage wires in the city. Because you never know when a boy working for an unlicensed homemade fireworks company might place a large mortar shell upside down under a 10,000 volt power line in the middle of a packed crowd.